This may or may not relate to your companion's reading of The Hermit. Something extraordinarily large awaits you. This card can mean society, it can mean literally the world itself. Some aspect of discovery or exploration awaits you that far exceeds anything you've ever experienced.
So just kicking off things with who you are, kind of your background.
Okay.
Not D&D really, just introduction of yourself.
Sure, yeah. Squirrel, I'm 50 years old. I've been a lifelong gamer. I got into video games, programming video games early in 1980 with an Apple II. Then I started doing it professionally in the mid-90s. I worked at a number of video game companies as a systems designer or a programmer or a technical director or lead programmer.
What got you into Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, so to sort of simplify what could be a very, very long story, there are multiple different things got me more into it at different times. I first discovered it just random chance, seeing it on a bookshelf, in a store shelf, and I don't remember when it was, but I was with my father building model rockets at this hobby store, and there were these Dungeons and Dragons. So this is before the first edition of AD&D. Then got really big into the first edition, second, third, fourth, fifth edition. So I've been playing D&D since, I don't know, the 80s. In my house we had the Satanic Panic, and so my mother encouraged me, forced me to burn all my Dungeons and Dragons books, which I think was 6th grade. I just have a hard time remembering exactly when. Then I just started recollecting them secretly in private. Also, my cousin, who was older, 4 years older, who I looked up to, Pietro, he got me into Rush and Led Zeppelin, and even bigger into D&D. I think before Pietro, I was more interested in just the fantasy, creatures and rolling dice. But Pietro, for me, took it to the next level of, shared, improvised storytelling with other people. So.
Okay. You mentioned the Satanic Panic and kind of like nerds playing the game. So D&D kind of has a reputation, kind of bad in the mainstream for a long time. How did you kind of overcome that reputation of either being kind of typecast as the geek nerd or a Satanist?
Right. Yeah, so two different problems, two unique problems, almost contradictory. So the Satanic Panic, of course, was at our church even, which was in West Chicago suburb, just had a class on the evils of Dungeons and Dragons, and they gave out all this information, and I was kind of really shocked by it and taken aback by it, until I looked into it, and all the information they were giving was false or taken out of context, which I think solidified me even further in the opposite direction of deciding, well, that's a bunch of nonsense. I really just had to be careful for, it's fine now in that regard, but for a long time, I don't know, 10 or more years, maybe 15, I had to be very careful about who I said, around whom I said that I played Dungeons and Dragons, because it would immediately trigger people, usually out of ignorance, people who had no idea what it was. And most people, I find, when they see it played, and this answers both parts of both the Satanic Panic and the, it's for geeks and nerds, when they actually see D&D played and they see people laughing and, playing in character and interacting with people in an imaginative world that they're all collaboratively ad-libbing together, that it's really something special.
What makes D&D so great, and what life skills have you gained from playing D&D and being a dungeon master?
Yeah. They're similar questions in the sense that one answer contributes to the other answer. I'll answer the second one first. Life skills. I am a capital I introvert, and many people are surprised to find that out about me, but any legitimate or illegitimate personality inventory test I take just pegs me strictly as an introvert. I like being with people, but I have to be by myself and recharge. And I'm not actually naturally a comfortable public speaker. It's something I really had to work on and struggled with. D&D's been really helpful with that, to be in a small, receptive audience who want you to succeed, and that's true in most cases if you're speaking, but the collaborative back and forth of it, and it being conversant style, I think was very helpful for me socially, especially as an awkward kind of intellectual, thinking kind of person. So it really developed my social skills. Math skills, I think people who play D&D are constantly doing small amounts of arithmetic, but also thinking about dice and, the sum of two 6-sided dice versus just one 12-sided die, and how those things feel and how they are different. So it's very interesting getting 2 rolls of a die and choosing the better of the 2, versus just adding 5 to whatever you roll. So I think there's a lot of math that's very simple, but it also invites people into that. My vocabulary expanded enormously from Dungeons and Dragons, from all of the Dungeon Master's guides for each of the editions, going through, they have tables with lists of phobias and lists of poisons and lists of medical conditions and, all the things that can happen to adventurers and stuff. So that's been enormous. Why is D&D great? I think, I would say that without a doubt for me, Dungeons & Dragons is the greatest game of all time. And there have been a number of other games that have been similar to it, that are also role-playing games. There have been computer games, of course, that have derived from it, and games that have derived from those games. And so its influence is unquestionable and unmistakable. But to have a game that has endured through 5 and now approaching sort of 6 editions over 40 some years, and to have a player base that's been loyal throughout, and that I cannot even count how many hours I've played, and no other game rivals how much time I've spent playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I could spend 10 hours easily recounting story after story after story with friends and strangers, in basements and in conferences of dragons slayed and adventures held and friends made. So it's hard to see how anything can